My name is Akshay Satam, and I will present this project that is rotating shaft with unbalanced weight. So basically, proceeding for my project, I will talk about some introduction, that is what is a vibration motor. So basically, my project is uh, depend on this vibration motor. So first, I will introduce what is vibration motor. Then I will proceed further for my project explanation. So vibration motors are totally enclosed in three-phase motors with adjustable eccentric weights mounted at both the ends of the shaft to set up vibration during rotation. So what do you mean by that? That is eccentric weights mounted at both the end of the shaft. So in previous slide, you can see the orange components uh, are the eccentric weights, that is unbalanced weight, and the brown color component is rotor, and gray color component is shaft. So while this rotating, this unbalanced weight component will generate centrifugal force. So that's how the vibration are created, and this vibration are transferred to the body and body to various applications. So I will explain this application in further slides. So these are the general specifications of motors ranging from 0.25 HP to 10 HP, and it comes with 2, 4, 6, 8 poles. So basically, you just go through it because uh, you know uh, only the mounting type, and these are the most important factors in the vibration motor, that is base, flange, and wedge. For this project, I am using only base mounting time, which is shown the in this image in orange color. So it is not like that vibration motors comes in three-phase motors. In our mobile also, there is one small vibrating motors. So this is DC motor, and in industry where three phase is not available, we can also use one phase also, which is our home electricity board. So even on that electricity, we can run this vibration motor. So this was about the features. Now the parameters of vibration motor. So there are five parameters, which is which are motor design, motor winding, lubrication, that is, and another is protection, and last one is centrifugal force. So I will explain each of these points. So in first one is motor design. So basically, like I said, it contains three-phase synchronous motor, which has eccentric weights mounted at the end of the shaft. The rotating shaft causes the centrifugal forces, which can be adjusted by moving the weights, and that creates the vibration. So I will explain this sentence, that adjusted by moving the weights, how we can adjust by moving the weights, and that will create the vibration. So further moving, unbalanced motor winding. So in this, insulation class F enhances the safety under continuous operation conditions and at high temperatures. So what is this insulation class F? So every wire has some kind of insulation. So normally the class F is used for the low powered application like 0.25 horsepower to zero point 0.5 horsepower, and where you need more more vibrations, like in coal mining industry or ceramic industry or in construction industry. There you will need more uh, you know more voltage and more electricity. So there you need to have class H insulation. So what is class H insulation? So in class H insulation, you will get extra layer of insulation which will prevent copper from melting, and it can withstand the high temperatures as well, and it will support the sorry it will prevent from corrosion as well. So that is where we use class H insulation, but it is very costly, so no need to go for class H unless it is required. So further moving to the next parameters, uh, unbalanced motor bearing and lubrication. So particularly in vibration motor, we only use uh, cylindrical roller bearing, because only those bearing can withstand high impact loads and under fluctuating load and even at high RPM. So only these cylindrical uh, roller bearing can suitable for this vibration motor. And another reason behind that, because cylinder has cylindrical roller bearing as line contact, so that is the main reason that for vibration motor we are using cylindrical roller bearing. And even these are permanently lubricated for normal applications, and if we want to relubricate it, we can use specialized equipment for that. So for the next point is protection system. These motors are completely sealed and meet the requirements of safety class IP55 or IP65. So everyone knows that IP65 is waterproof and IP55 is dust proof. So if the application environment is consider have some watery situation, there we can use IP65. Or in mostly in food industry and in pharmaceutical industry, we use IP55. The reason behind is IP50 is IP55 is can prevent the dust coagulation in the vibration motor. So it is better to use IP55 in pharmaceutical industry and food industry. So, and among this, IP65 is more costly. We can easily adjust the eccentric weights with the graduation to suit the practical application. It depends on practical application only, that how much force do we require for our for our application. So we will move on to the next, that unbalanced motor application. So unbalanced motors are used in various material handling equipment such as vibrating screens and conveyors and feeder. So on the right hand side of the diagram, green diagram, you can see this is the best example of vibrating screens, and the blue colored components are the vibration motor. So you may be wondering why these are inclined at some angle. So for vibration or to convey some product further convey some product in line or maybe in spiral formation, there you will see this kind of arrangement. And in the left side of the image, the first side, uh, the vibration motors are in vertical direction. So this is the best example of hopper, that is lot of material get in the one bucket, and from that the whole material is spread across the whole unit. So this is the best example, that first one is for hopper and rest are only for screening application. So, and there are also used. They are also used on hoppers, like the first image. Silos also, they are known as silos to prevent congestion of material flow. So in crude oil sector, uh, we term this vibrating screen as silos, or hoppers as silos. And the foundry shakeouts and compacting machines are machines use these motors for fast and efficient operations. So like I said, motor used in pharmaceuticals, construction, chemical industries, food equipments, and ceramic industry. So there are vast use of these vibration motors. So depend on your usage, you need to select your vibration motor accordingly. So this was about the introduction part. Now we will proceed for the project. So this is the basic uh, image of I took it for my project, and this whole assembly is rotating at 3 different RPMs, and its effect on shaft is being monitored in terms of deflection. So I will focus on only shaft, because I will tell you the reason in the further slides. So this is the simplest, diagram of the, you can say, assembly. So the yellow colored unbalanced weight on both sides are the unbalanced weight. Gray color component is bearing, and middle one is stator, and in that our brown color rotor is situated. So this is the best example of foot mounting bearing. Sorry, uh, foot mounting base. So to move further, I will tell you what type of systems we are going to use, and these systems I will explain in detail why we are using these systems in my project. So first is rigid dynamics. So it considers the large motion of bodies in the model. The displacements and the rotations are due to the body inertias, loads, and joints. So in the image, if you see, in the crane lifting mechanism, there are several joints. Uh, the piston you can consider as a cylindrical joint. The joints which are at the middle section, we can consider as a revolute joint. Fixed joint is at the foundation. So such loads can be uh, seen in our rigid dynamics. So it is very easy to simulate animation without considering stresses, strain, and fatigue. This rigid dynamics only focus on movements of the model, just like watching real JCB doing some work. So in rigid dynamics, you will get to know only the joints or mechanism. If your mechanism works accordingly your real prototype, then we can proceed further for the analysis. Unless it is not doing the job, then you will have to check for some errors, and after doing that you can proceed for your next system analysis. So further, I will explain in flexible analysis. It rigid and flexible bodies, part flexibility, and stress and strain. Also there is displacement. So next point is, what is rigid flexible dynamic analysis. So it is also known as multi-body dynamics. Connections of part via joint to simulate mechanism. The response is based on the kinematics of mechanism. So the features of the workbench rigid dynamics: reduce complexity and minimize run time by assigning rigid parts. I will explain each these points because there is one important thing I will tell you. The range of motion in mechanism, loads in joint or contact interface, effects of spring and dampers, part acceleration and velocities. So in this image, you can see there is only one structure showing some contour, that is stress, strain, deformation values, like we used to see in our normal analysis. Because this is the particular member is set to flexible behavior, and all the rest are rigid bodies. So here, what are we doing? I want only this product, only this member to show some stress deformation or strain deformation, and the rest are only acting as a rigid body. So it is saving more time and the complexity to run all the solving processes. So that's why rigid flexible dynamics is very helpful when you solve the more mechanism. If you have lots of mechanism, then you can proceed for rigid flexible dynamics. So there is one more thing, that effects of spring and damper. So you know instead of this piston in the right image, instead of piston, we can put the spring or dampers, and then we can simulate the whole process. So there is no need to generate or create spring just to show, just to uh, show here the component. We can show, or we can create springs directly in the rigid dynamics. So no need to create more springs for that. So in the next slide, I will talk what if all parts are rigid, and then the analysis can run as pure rigid body dynamics analysis. So as all the parts are rigid, like like in this uh, like in this image, so this will run as pure rigid dynamic analysis. So this will be a very fast process, no convergence issues at all, and this will only calculate forces, moments, displacement, and velocities and acceleration. So it's not going to calculate any stresses or strains. But once we add any flexible body, it uses the standard implicit solver. That is, implicit means like transient analysis only. So this, but this thing will also save the time because we have some rigid bodies. Because yeah, I will explain this point in meshing section, that why rigid body will save the time. So here in this project, we first run this assembly in rigid dynamics. Reason for that, we will get instant results, and then we can connect this to any system for calculating any stresses or displacement. So in next slide, we are starting our project, that is uh, from 3D geometry. This whole setup is generated in SolidWorks and saved in Parasolid. There is no compulsion that we only save in Parasolid. We can save it in STL format as well as in IGS format. So here we are cutting the geometry into half to save computational time. But body has to be symmetric in nature. So there is one rule, thumb rule, that if your body is symmetric, then only you can cut your geometry into half. There is option in analysis where you can cut the asymmetric body, but you have to follow some rules for that. So here I am cutting this geometry to save my computational time. So in rigid dynamics and transient system, rigid body cannot be put in symmetric behavior. So I will tell you the reason behind. Because in rigid dynamics, you cannot put symmetric regions in that. So if you tried in transient system, there you can apply the symmetric region, and you can proceed further. But in this, you cannot, in rigid dynamics, you cannot put the symmetric region. So that's why here we are only focusing on shaft. So the rest part is not I'm only interested in shaft part. So the shaft region is shaft stiffness behavior is set to flexible, and rest components are rest components are rigid. Like in this video, in this window, you can see stiffness behavior is flexible, so only for shaft, but rest parts are rigid only. So these are the unbalanced weights bearing contact phase here, rotor and shaft. So I will tell you the connections, how we know how I did this connections. So system selection, we first import the geometry in rigid dynamic ANSYS workbench, and to verify for errors, geometry opened in the space claim. So I did this in SolidWorks. I already cut my geometry into half, and then I import into my my rigid dynamics. You can cut this in geometry in space claim. No worries. So connection settings, after assigning material to components, we can assign material anything. So no need to focus on that. So after that, after assigning the material, we proceed to the connection settings. So ANSYS is pretty intelligent software that it will generate automatic connections. But here we make sure that shaft is in contact side or contact side of the bodies. I will explain this in my further slides. Reason for that is when we connect the rigid dynamics to transient system, shaft will be the component which needs to be examined. Like I said, I am only focusing on shaft, so that's why we are going to examine only shaft component. So what if we don't you know put the shaft in contact side bodies? So if you don't do this process, ANSYS will show error in rigid flexible dynamics analysis, that on which element calculations is needs to be carried out. So he will going to ask you that on which element I should calculate, or uh, on which element I should proceed to calculate any stress or displacement. So this is only in rigid flexible dynamics. But there is one note that in rigid dynamics error, it will it's not going to show you any error, because in rigid dynamics it only focus on your motions. So that is displacement, rotation, and body inertia, loads and joints. So it is not it is not it's only focusing on your mechanism, not the forces that you want to calculate, not the stresses that you want to calculate. So this error will not pop up in rigid dynamics. It will only pop up in rigid flexible dynamics. So make sure we do this step in the rigid flexible dynamics. So here we are doing this step that we make sure that on contact side bodies, shaft selection is there, and contact type is set to no separation, and rest settings are by default. So in the right window you can see, in contact bodies, the red color portion is considered as shaft, and on target side bodies, unbalanced weight is there. So always make sure this process is follows. So in rigid flexible dynamics, on which component you are going to uh, start the calculation. So that component should be on the contact side always. So race settings are by default, no need to change anything. So reason behind I am using no separation, because even in reality, bonded connection is not possible unless you weld the wall, uh, weld the unbalanced weight. But here we are constantly changing our unbalanced weight position if you want, as per the application. So that's why we are using no separation contact type. In no separation contact type, there is small sliding, but your component will stay in the same position, but the ANSYS will calculate for small sliding. So always make sure that you will not get any bonded type connection. You will get no separation, and you are frictionless or frictional connection. You will not get any bonded type connection. So same process for our rotor and shaft. Contact side bodies set to shaft. Race settings are same. So further moving for joint settings. So here is the screenshot of all the joints. Here all the components are mounted on shaft. So they are fixed with respect to shaft, and only rotor has revolute motion. As EMF induced in rotor, it will rotate and the whole assembly will follow its motion. So every joint is fixed with respect to shaft only, and the rotor has given the revolute motion. It's the same thing happens in real life, that a rotor gets uh, as the EMF induced in rotor will try to rotate the shaft. Shaft will try to rotate unbalanced weight, and that's how the whole process goes on. So it's same as the real life application. So that's how we should follow the joint setting as the real life application follows. So here uh, unbalanced weight is fixed to shaft. Here is there is no preference. You can select you know the sorry. Here shaft is always moving. So that's why shaft is selected in mobile region and unbalanced weight in reference region. So make sure you do this process for the both unbalanced shaft. For connection between uh, shaft and rotor, make sure you do the uh, connection on mobile side, that is rotor, and on reference side shaft, because first thing is going to rotate the the rotor is going to rotate in the first no rotor will rotate first and then the shaft. So that's why we are attaching this we are doing this uh, mobile selection in a body. So so as in previous image, it was shown in this was the contact bearing contact phase. So bearing joint is on shaft. Connection type is body to ground in YZ plane. So this is considered as contact phase. So as you connect as in connection type, it is body to ground. You will get only one option, that is mobile joint, and in that you select the shaft joint. Make sure that in the rotation plane, that you have YZ plane, and your shaft axis should lie on X axis. So make sure you check your shaft axis, and then uh, check your rotation plane. In this case my rotation axis is X, So that's why I'm selecting YZ plane. Here is revolute joint is given for the rotor. So it is mandatory that you give revolute joint to rotor, because uh, you know in further slide you have to select in ANSYS setting, you have to select your joint rotation. Then there you will select the rotation ground to rotor, sorry, revolute ground to rotor option, and then you can give the RPM readings. So I will explain you in further slides when we get to into joint rotation settings. So this is mesh setting. No need to put any method unless it is necessary. And in rigid dynamics, we can only create mesh on face. But in rigid flexible dynamics analysis, all components are rigid except shaft. Shaft behavior is kept flexible, because then only we can calculate various parameters. Unbalanced weight and rotor are kept in rigid behavior. Reason behind it, there is no forces acting on these components as in this boundary condition of project. So we are saving plenty of computational time in meshing and solving. So this is the reason why we are considering shaft as a flexible and all the rest components as the rigid. So this is the main reason that if we consider all these as a flexible element, so in mesh settings, the meshing time will be more, and hence computational time for solver will be larger. So, and the fourth one is important, that usually rigid dynamics don't require any meshing. So if we require any meshing, then you will only have one option, that we can only create mesh on face in rigid dynamics. So generally, no one uses meshing in rigid dynamics. So that's why we, you know, that's why we use rigid dynamics to get instant results in the our analysis. So in mesh setting for shaft, patch independent method. So the advantages of patch independent generation is the ability to ignore points within the model that has no relation to calculation. It is also an effective method to use when working with the CAD models of poor quality. So what do you mean? What do you mean by this statement? Is, you know, first statement is, no, we are considering only shaft as a flexible element. So this mesh will try to ignore the unbalanced weight and the rotor. So even the unbalanced weight has some contact with the shaft, and rotor has some contact with the shaft. So by using this patch independent method, the uh, you know uh, the mesh setting, the ANSYS will ignore all these faces, and it will only focus on the shaft. And because I'm using this method, because we are using a very coarse mesh in this, so obviously the our CAD model has poor quality. So this is the mesh best method for you know uh, if you stuck in the convergence issue. So because I've tried lot of other methods, but in that I had a lot of convergence issue, so that's why I use this method. So in this method, in the right window, you can see I'm using tetrahedrons, and uh, rest settings are by default only. So there is no need to change anything in this. So basically, I was, uh, telling you that why we need to uh, why we need to have some Like in this slide, we put revolute joint on the rotor. So this is the reason we will get the option here in joint option, revolute ground to rotor. If we don't do this, this option is not going to appear here. So basically we are trying to rotate only the rotor, and as we have uh, selected no separation as a contact type for all the components, so this will carry out the operation like the in real world is happening. So I've set the magnitude for 1000 rpm. Likewise, I have three cases. Case one is 1000, 2000, and 3000. So I'm showing only here one case example. So in analysis settings, in both rigid dynamics and rigid flexible dynamic analysis, by default timings are used. So there is one thing that there is because I had some hardware limitations, because my computer power is not that effective to solve this in a very great manner. So that's why it is better to go by default setting as in this case. So once we get to get to know how much computational time is being taken, once we get how much of computational time is being taken, then by trial and error method we can save the computational time. But here I used only the by default timing. So even with the by default timing, the my case one took about 3 hours and beyond that. So likewise, I had three cases. So for whole three cases, it took me almost 12 hours to complete this simulation. So that's why this timing is very important. If you don't if you don't know what timing should be there, so just go by default timing, and you will get the idea that how much of time is being taken. Then you can by trial and error method you can manipulate the settings. So after this, here are the results after running. So this is the case one where we are rotating the rotor at 1000 rpm. Max deflection is 1.62. This is the second case, 2000 rpm, 1.72 mm, and this is the third case, max deflection 2.25 mm. So you may be wondering, only shaft is showing. So I've hit the unbalanced weight and rotor, because yeah, but if I just show them here, you will not get to see these points, maximum, minimum. So in conclusion, I will say, if we can say that the RPM, as the RPM is increasing, also the deformation is increasing. And in any machine, practically there are some limitations where all the parameters should work in safe range. Here in our case, permissible deflection of shaft while rotating is 6 mm. So we are in safe range. So from my practical experience, I will say the deflections what I am getting is way beyond high, because generally we get this deflection around 0.25 mm, 0.35 mm, or 0.67 mm, like that, because uh, there are some in reality whole thing is very different, because this is following the general or ideal method, and in practical uh, this is these are very different. So that's why even those these readings are quite much high, but in reality, these are not the readings you will get. So even if we are getting so much of readings or so much of deflection, so for that we can to further reduce reduction of shaft deflection, we can use more stiff material with high tensile strength, such as high carbon content steel, and it is commonly also known as hot rolled steel. You will get that in the your our design book, that is our PhD book, hot rolled steel. So this was my project.